Hello everyone, my name is Dara Rath and I'm the pastor at Faith Lutheran Church in Port Elgin, Ontario, Canada. Each week I bring you a story that takes about 5 minutes to watch. Some of them are funny, some of them give you something to think about, as is in the case of this story. It's from a book called Flowers in the Wind by Robert Coos, and it's written by someone named Marion Smith. This story takes place on a bitterly cold winter's day in Washington, D.C. A tourist from California trying to get warmed up ducked into Union Station and sat on one of the benches. As she waited for her fingers and toes to get warm, she enjoyed watching all the people coming and going from the trains and the buses and the restaurants in the station. As the tourist watched, she noticed a very poor young man nearby. The man's body was gaunt, and he wore the tattered clothes of a homeless person. The tourist wondered how long it had been since the man had eaten. As she wondered about this, the tourist could detect delicious smells of food coming from the restaurants, and she wondered if the poor young man was about to beg for some money. The homeless man, however, did not ask for anything. As the tourist was debating whether or not she should go for the food, to buy the young man some food, and whether she should just mind her own business and not get involved at all, a well-dressed young couple approached the homeless man and said, "Excuse me, sir, my wife and I just finished eating in a local restaurant, and we weren't as hungry as we thought. We hate to waste good food. Would you help us out and put this to use?" The couple gave the homeless man a large styrofoam container. "God bless you both," he said. The young man said. The homeless man was beside himself with joy. He examined his new meal with care, and he would examine, as we would examine a jewelry case of fine diamonds. He rearranged the soup crackers, inspected the club sandwich, and stirred the salad dressing. He was obviously trying to make the meal last as long as possible, for it was truly a rare treat. At last, the young homeless man took off the lid of his soup, cupped his hands around the steaming warm bowl, and inhaled the delicious aroma. But just as he was lifting the soup to his mouth, he stopped and looked up. There we saw an elderly man in lightweight pants, a threadbare jacket, and open shoes. His hands were raw and looked like he was freezing. Suddenly the young homeless man set his meal aside, jumped up, and guided the elderly man to an adjacent seat. He took the elderly man's icy hands in his and rubbed them briskly. He took off his own worn jacket and put it over the old man's shoulders. The young man then said, "Pop, my name's Jack, and a couple of God's angels brought me this meal. I just finished eating and I hate to waste good food. Could you help me out?" Jack put the still warm bowl of soup in the old man's hands without waiting for an answer. The old man said, "Sure, son, but only if you go halfway with me on that sandwich. It's too much for a man my age." Well, the tourist who witnessed all of this was amazed. She was also thoroughly ashamed of herself. She called herself a good person, but she was the only one in the scenario had not shown such love. Therefore, she promptly got up, walked to the food court, and came out to the two homeless men to give them some large containers of coffee and a big assortment of pastries. She left Union Station warmed up not only in her body, but also in her spirit. Well, I used to work at the University of Toronto as a director of research, and on the corner outside our office building, there was always a young man who stood there every day in the morning until about 9:30, and then he would return again in the afternoon at 3:30. And he always had his hat out. One time he was missing for about 3 weeks, and we wondered where on earth he was. And then he showed up again. And I said to him, "Oh my goodness, where have you been? We've missed you." And he said he was able to find work for 3 weeks. So, we don't know what happens to these people. We don't walk in their shoes. And so after that, I thought there must be something in his, maybe in his background where he couldn't be hired by people. And so I used to go and get him a sandwich and coffee, and sometimes I would put some money in his hat at Christmas time especially. And so this is a wonderful story, very wonderful. It shows us about caring for others, but also how they care for each other too. So thanks for taking 5, and blessings on your day.